Well, for more, I'm joined by Professor Anil Gupta. He's the Michael Dingman Chair in Strategy and Entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland School of Business. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Rachelle.
So there were a wave of agreements signed, everything from trade, infrastructure, tourism, 24 agreements. Which ones do you think will have the biggest impact on the Indian economy?
I think in terms of on the Indian economy, really actually, including the agreement signed today, and in fact, the agreements that are in the works that have been signed earlier, that might be signed tomorrow, or actually, China time today in Shanghai, the two biggest would really be around the rail sector and the power sector. Because for India, at this point in time, really the only things that matter can be captured in three words, and that's infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. And of course, China is the world's grandmaster in infrastructure. Also, China has an abundance of capital that's looking for investment targets. So I think there is a nice complementarity between China and India in the infrastructure sector in particular.
And then other than infrastructure, you said there were two key deals that you said were most important.
Yeah, so from an economic point of view, on a government-to-government discussion basis, clearly it's infrastructure. Of course, on the economic side, not really government-to-government, but pure private sector. It's like earlier the lady was saying, is that you look at Alibaba, you look at Xiaomi, you look at Lenovo. Those are pure private sector companies, and they don't look to the Chinese government for guidance. They do whatever makes sense to them. And actually, they are very active, and Xiaomi has said, it wants to be not just a Chinese company, but an Indian company. And so that's going on. On the other side, not the economic, but the geopolitical side, and there actually what Mr. Modi, aside from the border issue, but of course, the border issue is not going to get resolved anytime soon. So the best both sides can hope for is essentially continued peace. But India is very keen to become a member of the United Nations Permanent Security Council. India is very keen to be part of the nuclear suppliers group. And say on the Permanent Security Council, the leaders of UK and France, Russia, US, they have said they support India's case. The one which has not is China. So clearly, that's what Mr. Modi has, as I understand, been pressing the Chinese leadership.
Now, we're also going to look at how both countries are committing to try and reduce trade barriers. What do you think the priority should be in achieving that goal?
Actually, personally, in my view, which is a little bit different from the view of a lot of the commentators and analysts in India, is that the trade, the unbalanced trade, is not going to get resolved anytime soon because China is a manufacturing powerhouse, India is not. And so, there's a lot of talk in India about the IT services and pharmaceuticals, and if China were to relax, kind of any kind of entry barriers on those, no, it wouldn't make a difference. You don't export IT services from an English or Hindi-speaking country to a Mandarin-speaking country. Okay, and
so you don't see that working anytime soon?
No, it wouldn't have any impact on trade. So yeah, it's good to try and improve trade. It's good to make the trade more balanced. But at the end of the day, you and I wake up 5 years from now, the trade picture wouldn't be all that different. What we really should be hoping for is that the investment picture is dramatically different.
And one of the other things that was also high on the agenda, climate change. What do you think are the biggest challenges for these two big carbon emitters?
Yeah. And the biggest challenge is that, in fact, both China and India, and particularly you look at the urban China, urban India, that they have some of the most polluted cities in the world and some of the largest numbers. And ultimately, of course, everybody in the world suffers. But the biggest group of people who suffer are Chinese citizens and Indian citizens. So at this point in time, neither China nor India can ignore or overlook or even delay trying to figure out, what to do on the environment front. Obviously, the two countries are at different stages in their economic development. And so China has already indicated that it will sign on to an absolute reduction in the carbon emission. India's perspective is that, look, we still need a lot more economic growth. We still need a lot more industrialization. So we are not ready to sign on to an absolute reduction the way China is. However, just like what China did 10 years back, is to say we will sign on to reducing the carbon intensity of our GDP.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to
Yeah.
leave it there, but thank you so much,
Welcome.
Professor Anil Gupta. Thank you so much
Delight.
for joining
Thank
us.
you.